Hello, everybody. I'm going to look at two potential 15 markers for education. So formal socialization and formal curricula have never come up before. And I'm going to plan with you the paragraphs that we would look to include to answer both of these questions. So they're in your 15 marker grid, and this is ideally where we'd want that information to go. So for formal socialization, as a 15 marker, the first thing, I'm just going to check I'm definitely presenting. Yeah, the first thing I would suggest that you do with these ones is to provide a definition. So formal socialization is learning, make it a little bit bigger, is learning skills, norms, and values within education. So formalization is learning skills, norms, and values within education. Sometimes it just really helps to have a definition to help formulate what the paragraphs will be. Now, normally we aim for 3 paragraphs for our 15 markers in education. So 3 paragraphs, ideally, where possible, with 3 sociologists in each paragraph, so that when we're looking at the grade boundaries, we have got detail and range. So for paragraph 1, when we talk about socialization, I always work my way through the grids. So I'm going to start with functionalism. And functionalism argues that formal socialization provides skills needed for work. I know that encompasses or addresses the question because the definition is skills, norms, and values. So functionalism argues that formal socialization provides skills needed for work. Okay, education has 3 key functions. It's an agent of socialization, and teaches everyone the same norms and values. It produces ideal citizens and provides skills and allocates roles due to ability. So I go to my functionalism grid. I know functionalism mentions socialization and the importance of it for teaching skills and creating ideal citizens. So then I've popped in the key functions of education. It's an agent of socialization. It produces ideal citizens, provides skills, and allocates roles. I'm also going to pop there Durkheim as well. So for Durkheim, I'm going to link back to the question. Formal socialization creates social beings who are taught the same norms and values. Teaching RS and history creates social solidarity, and in brackets going to put togetherness so they know I know what that concept means. Teaching RS and history creates social solidarity or togetherness, and this creates ideal citizens who are functioning members of society. Got Durkheim, ideal citizens, social solidarity as a result of formal socialization. Got 3 functions and Durkheim. Going to have Parsons, who argues that formal socialization teaches us universalistic standards, in brackets, love my brackets, values applied to all, and teaches us that all statuses must be achieved, not ascribed. Parsons and his idea that we have to be taught the values of universal, or we have to, be taught universalistic standards, and that statuses must be applied to all, that statuses must be achieved, not ascribed. Lastly, because I aim for 3 sociologists, the 3 functions does still count as knowledge, but I always like 3 and a little bit more if I can help it. So for Davis and Moore, socialization ensures we all learn that education is meritocratic, that it's fair, and that any inequality encourages you to work harder. So I've got Davis and Moore and meritocracy, I've got Parsons, Durkheim, and then a little bit there on the 3 functions. So really range of sociologists there, and I've used their concepts, which also awards me higher marks. At the end of that, I'm going to do my AO2, which is always demonstrated by language like this shows or this means. So this shows, and address the question, which is definitely formal socialization. This shows formal socialization provides skills needed for work. Formal socialization provides skills needed for work and ensures we all learn the same norms and values This means society continues to function successfully and has limited conflict as a result. So, formal socialization provides skills that we need for work. It means we're all taught the same norms and values. If we're all taught the same norms and values, it means society continues to function successfully because we're ultimately all the same. And this means we have limited conflict as a result. So everyone's better off, it functions well. That's functionalism. When if I then move on to paragraph 2, what you could do a paragraph on here is on family and how the family ensures that we are formally socialized to teach the norms and values that encourage educational success. So paragraph 2, family ensures formal socialization Family ensures that formal socialization teach us the skills and values needed to achieve in education. That family teaches us skills and values that we need in order to achieve in education, teaches us the skills and values needed to achieve in education. So, for example, we're going to add in anyone to do with parental interest. So Douglas found that parental interest was the most important factor. Driver and Ballard. I feel like I have to mix the grid here because they're all themed now based on family. For Driver and Ballard, they found that South Asian parents have high aspirations for their children and push them to work hard and be successful. And for Phillips and Palmer, so then new right. For Phillips and Palmer, middle class parents are more child-centered. They encourage their children to defer gratification and can socially control their children. Douglas, parental interest is the most important. For Driver and Ballard, particularly South Asian parents have really high aspirations for their children. And for Phillips and Palmer, middle-class parents are much more child-centered. They focus on their children much more. They encourage their children to defer and wait for rewards, to work hard in education. And they can actually socially control them, which means they're easier to teach. So obviously here we can't actually evaluate, so we can't bring in Pilkington and the generalization about South Asian groups. We're making sweeping statements there, when in actual fact there's very different rates of achievement. And for Phillips and Palmer, it's grossly offensive, but we can't evaluate here. We have to kind of just leave it, and this shows it and apply it to the question. So if you remembered Pilkington and Keddy angrily rejecting that, well done, but we have to hold off. So this shows formal socialization. So this shows that formal socialization means parents can teach their children to value education, and acquire skills that will lead to educational success. Okay, formal socialization and functionalism, formal socialization and parental involvement that may lead to higher rates of success for some children. I think it's 2 paragraphs. I think it's shorter. Just on thought, it might be worth considering if you could do one on Marxism, and whether the skills and values taught are actually that are pro-capitalism. So just as I'm thinking about it, I would normally go functionalism, Marxism, feminism. But actually, if we look at Marxism and we look at Bowles and Gintis, education teaches working class to be docile and passive. You've got Althusser, education is nothing more than an ideological state apparatus, a tool used by government to teach ruling class ideas. Oops, ruling class ideas. Yeah, so actually those are values, which links into education. So tool used by government to teach ruling class ideas. So those are, yeah, those are values. They teach you that capitalism is good, or only option. by the socialization process. And Bowles and Gintis, those are actually, quote unquote, the skills needed for work. And we're going to put skills in the commas because the idea is that they're underskilled on purpose, so that you justify paying less for labour. So we're going to do those two. I think it might actually work out well as a third paragraph, thinking about it. So this shows that formal socialization in education teaches skills, and again I'm going to put the commas because the idea is that it's actually you de-skill the working class to pay them much less than their labour is worth. So formal socialisation education teaches skills and values that are pro-capitalism. And this ensures that a revolution is prevented and that the working class continue to be exploited. So formal socialization ensures that we prevent a revolution and that the working class, so it teaches the skills and values that are both pro-capitalism, and it ensures that a revolution is prevented and that the working class continue to be exploited by the capitalist system. So yeah, actually, on hindsight, I think it does do 3 paragraphs. Right, that's formal socialization, functionalism, a nice new Marxism one there, and then family being part of that socialization process too. The second one, again, it hasn't come up before, is formal curricula. So the formal curriculum, again, if I give you a definition, is the content needed to pass an exam. It's the physical content taught that you need to pass an exam. So my paragraph 1 is that the formal curricula is ethnocentric. Formal curriculum is ethnocentric. It excludes ethnic minorities and reflects a predominantly white middle class perspective. It reflects one cultural view whilst ignoring others. So the curriculum predominantly reflects a white history or white literature. It reflects one cultural view whilst ignoring others, because to be taught British history or to be taught in Britain is not to be taught only a white perspective. So to be British is to have British citizenship or to be born on British soil. So, okay, so the sociologists we've got here is we've got called that the school curriculum is ethnocentric and it disadvantages and ignores cultural and ethnic diversity. It adopts attitudes of Little Englandism and looks at the Great British Empire and past glories. We do the kind of glories because, again, with things like colonialism, to see kind of British Empire and past glories when you're very aware of things like colonialism and things is perhaps difficult to stomach. So for core, we've got the ethnocentric curriculum. It adopts Little Englandism, and there tends to be a focus on the Great British Empire and past glories. For particularly et al., Black youth in particular, resent the invisibility of their culture, so resent being ignored and being reduced to a study on slavery. So Black history, Black culture, Black contributions, Black British history contributions are ignored. And then only generally when when any kind of Blackness within the history, within the curriculum is used, it's normally reduced to study on slavery. Particularly, et al. Found that Black youth in particular really resent being reduced to a study on slavery and focusing on a curriculum that focuses on white achievement. I then am going to look at the analysis. So we've got the chord there, we've got Tickley et al., and then we've got this shows the formal curriculum is ethnocentric and disadvantages and alienates ethnic minorities as a result. The formal curriculum is ethnocentric, it disadvantages and alienates ethnic minorities who may not engage as a result. So it might be hard to engage in a curriculum that's very positive, rather than perhaps showing all of the elements of British history. Right, paragraph 2. The only other way that we've got the formal curriculum is science being packaged. So paragraph 2 then is that the formal curriculum, because that's the phrasing, isn't it? Yes, the formal curricula can disadvantage boys and girls. Going to go to gender. So for Kelly, so the late Alison Kelly, so Kelly, science is packaged as a boys subject. I can't remember if she's a doctoral professor. I should use her title. Anyway, so for Kelly, science is packaged as a boys subject. And we still use gender narratives. For Bishop et al., 53% of teachers felt there was a difference in boys' and girls' ability to complete coursework. And for Mitos and Brown, they found, with Mitos and Brown, sorry, teachers are less strict with boys. They give them more leeway with deadlines and expect lower standards of work. So, not going to lie, Kelly is definitely the formal curriculum. So is Bishop et al., because when we had lots of coursework elements, if there was allegedly a high proportion of coursework that disadvantages boys, obviously, again, we can't evaluate, but you know from Elwood that that's actually not the case because girls outperform boys in subjects where there's no coursework. But anyway, we can have those evaluations in our mind because we should know them, but we can't use them here. But Kelly and Bishop et al. Are definitely the formal curriculum, that the way that it's structured or packaged or taught with lots of boys' names, that is in the formal curriculum and off-putting. Bishop et al., if the formal curriculum has a huge proportion of coursework, that may disadvantage the boys. Mitos and Brown here, can't lie, is just a little bit more teachers' expectations, but 2 out of 3 flowing quite nicely. So this shows, do my AO2, there's no AO3, so this shows that the formal curricula, it shows that the formal curricula disadvantages, it shows that the formal curricula disadvantages boys with higher rates of coursework and girls with the use of gendered narratives and examples in textbooks and exam questions. Okay, with this exam question, I don't think there's 3 paragraphs, that there's 2 with 3 sociologists in each paragraph for formal curricula. And unlike with the one before on formal socialization, I'm very, very, very certain of that. Okay, so just make sure that they are summarized in there for me. And if you have any questions, just please let me know and I'll get back to you. Thank you.